Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah, this that Dealer Talk.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Charity Ann, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Happy podcast day. I see that you're wearing one of the newer shirts today.
I am, yes. So we are upgrading. So what's going on? How are you? How's your week?
Good.
How was your Friday morning meeting?
Friday morning meeting was great. There's a couple of managers. We do a group meeting once a month, and it's always fun because there's a couple of managers at some of the other stores that are they're really good at motivational stuff. So I like it when they talk. Shout out to Jay.
Did you get pumped up?
Yeah, he's good at it.
Yeah, I know. He is really good at it.
Yeah.
So
he used this like whole analogy. I guess he got it from a Damon West thing, but if you're in a pot of boiling water, you can be three things. Do you know this one? You can be a carrot, you can be an egg, or you can be a coffee bean. So the carrot, I know, the carrot softens, the egg hardens, and the coffee bean, what does a coffee bean do when it's...
No clue.
It changes everything around it.
It sure does.
It doesn't change, but everything else around it does.
Wow, that's deep. I like that.
Yep.
Damn.
So that was, I know. And then he went a step further and went and said, I know. He went a step further and said, so what kind of coffee bean do you want to be?
Right on.
So that's
very
what
cool.
We do in our Friday morning meetings.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do, right? Supposed to get you pumped up for the weekend and for the month. And boy, do we need that now more than ever, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, man. Like, sure. These past couple of years have just done so much psychological warfare. I love it.
That's a really good way to put it.
Wow, it's about to get super interesting. But, you know, when you're in the good times.
Yep.
You're in the good times.
You're in the good times. What are they? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not like we didn't see it coming.
I'm starting to have that feeling. I'm about to get really vulnerable here, but whatever. I'm starting to have that feeling that I had in like 2020, where I was like, oh shit, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like,
yeah,
am I gonna have you know what I mean? Like it's getting real.
There's been a couple of instances in the last week or two where I was like, and more, not just me, but some of the sales guys on the floor have all gone, should we be nervous right now? Yeah. It's been interesting.
People are going to start to get fired. Mm-hmm. Strategies are going to start to change.
Oh, you're giving me anxiety. Let's talk about something else.
Well, I'm just saying. Anyway, you're right. What the hell, man? Like the doom and gloom.
Everybody that's listening's anxiety just went through the roof, Herb.
Sorry. You know, I'm human. I have my moments. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about something positive. Talk about our sponsor, 4Eyes, for sponsoring another season with us here at the Dealer Talk podcast. Really appreciate their support. Amazing company. They have, you know, we've already mentioned the different products that they have, but they, you know, what I really appreciate about them is their ability to just think about ways that they can bring more value to automotive dealerships, and I like the fact that they're flexible and that they let you try their products out for free. I think that that's huge, right? You come to your own conclusions, you get to test it out. If you see that it's moving the needle for you, then great. And if not, then you can move on.
So, automotive news. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the sad tale of, should we call it Humpty Dumpty? Humpty Dumpty.
But what is it?
Carvana.
Why
I
is
think
that?
Humpty Dumpty is a really great example for Carvana. Had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men. Do you think that they'll climb back up at all?
I don't know. That's an
Or do you
interesting
think they're
one.
done?
First of all, like, okay.
Okay.
Here are my thoughts. First, they were never profitable. I don't know. It's still yet to be proven. I think they only had one quarter where they were on the plus side. Number two, as I've said repeatedly on the show, that model is still too early to be considered a threat. Why? Because it doesn't have repetition yet. It hasn't been around long enough to determine whether that 10% market share, whatever their market share is. I don't really know the numbers, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But if those customers will not repeat their purchasing experience in that way, then what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you might get me one time, but I had such an awful. Plus, they, in my opinion, they did something really smart and really not so smart, which was acquiring Odessa. Really smart for their operation, for logistics, and who knows, that's yet to be determined. I mean, companies fall and rise all the time, so I'm not going to write them out completely. It's just the timing was not ideal, because now they acquired a bunch of debt that's on their books, and you're having these swings, not even swings, but you're having this decrease in inventory values, and they had over purchased, in my opinion, and they're just in a really bad situation. But they have alternatives, right? They have things that they could sell. They have people that they can lay off. They have, I don't know if anybody would be willing to invest, but they could try to go that route. I think that's probably not going to be an ideal solution during this time.
Okay, so this is something that I actually don't think I know anything about in the automotive space. What happens if your dealership goes under? What do you just sell everything to the guy next door?
It just depends on the deal and how it's structured. Is it a single store? You know what I mean? Is it blue sky? Do you own the land? They're just different.
It's just like any other business.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and then there's the franchise agreement and all that stuff that you need to take into consideration.
Does it happen
dealers
right
now, I think right now it's happening all the time. I think all these bigger groups like Group 1 and Lithia, probably Lithia in particular, they surpassed AutoNation to be the largest group. Is it the world? I know the US for sure, but and by turn maybe the world. I don't know if it's the world, so but definitely the US. So they've been acquiring stores like crazy, right? So I think now individual dealers are in a much better position. Probably 6 months ago, even better, because you probably weren't going to get a better valuation maybe a year ago. So it's a perfect time to sell off if you have one store. You get the most money, right? But anyway, back to Carvana. So they have options. They have alternatives. They can file for bankruptcy. I mean, there's all these different things that they can do, and they still have a bunch of assets. So
Do you think that Carvana will be around in 5 years?
you know what everybody should be thinking about Carvana right now, which I haven't heard a lot of conversations, and I know people are going to be like, oh no, but Amazon is what everybody should be worried about. Amazon buying, because now the cost of acquisition of Carvana is significantly less. It's super cheap. You can get it for pennies on the dollar. And if Amazon was
for all of the people that work at Amazon that listen to our podcast, don't listen to that part. We're not giving you any ideas.
If Amazon was ever going to get into the game, into the space, this would be the play, in my opinion. Buy Carvana now with ADESA, with the infrastructure, the logistics, and introduce and take their model and kind of fuse it with Amazon's model, and oh boy, it would be.
Do you think that's scary?
I don't think here's why I don't think it would happen. Because they don't have a servicing model.
Amazon or
either one.
Either one.
So what would you do with okay, let's say they do buy they buy it super cheap. Now Amazon is in the game. They can ship cars everywhere or use cars anyway. But how do you service the cars? Because that's a big portion of the customer journey, of the customer experience. So, and I think for that reason alone, Amazon wouldn't do it.
You know, I used to when I worked at that little tiny independent dealer, they didn't really have a service department at all. They had like this guy that would check the cars when we bought them, but once you sold it, it was gone. Like they didn't come back to us for service at all. I always thought that was really weird.
Yeah, I mean, but okay, so if you're buying a car, especially from Amazon, right? What are they very big on? Returns. And, you know, oh, you don't like your product, give it back. Here's another one, or, you know, refunds, all that stuff. With a car, how do you do that? You can't even service the vehicle. So now you're going to have a bunch of pissed off customers that bought a car that broke, you know, 2 weeks after they purchased the vehicle, and they have no alternative for repair. And again, I don't know. I mean, there's infrastructures out there where they could mesh, like, you know, mobile servicing and things of that nature. Although that's a little bit, you know, I know that there's some companies that are doing more and more of that, but you know, it's still not something that, from an experience standpoint, is fully cooked, in my opinion.
Okay, moving on.
But I mean, those are things that could happen, right? I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying these are alternatives that Carvana has, right? They could go and partner up with you know, Google, with some of these tech giants or something that have a bunch of capital, and they have the assets and the infrastructure, and they can be like, hey, let's, you know, buy me out for cheap, and we'll keep running this deal. Or I don't know, you know, who knows what kind of partnership Uber is another one that comes to mind that could potentially could be a good fit, a good partner.
Apparently, this is the anxiety episode where we discuss all things.
But, hey, this is what's happening in our industry, right? So I mean, we gotta talk about it.
Herb thinking like the Chicken Little.
Okay.
Okay, wait. Did you know that Congress is wanting to delay all of the stipulations on the tax credits now? They're backpedaling.
Ooh, why? No, I didn't know that. I didn't see that at all.
Well, because I don't know. You tell me yours, and I'll read this while we're doing that.
Here's one, and I think we were talking about this, I think 2 episodes ago, but The headline says that as autonomous vehicle technology stalls out, oh geez, sorry. Okay, as driverless car craze technology stalls, startups put tech to new use, and we were talking about this with Guild Boy to a certain degree.
Mhm.
And I wanted to kind of reference that one because it's pretty interesting. And okay, so the premise of that question that I asked him on the show was basically, do we have the technology right now to be at a level 5, and all we need to level 5 autonomy, and all we need to do is work on infrastructure and legislation and things of that nature? And he said no, he doesn't believe that we do. And so to me, that was very I don't know. I really like the fact of knowing that, because to me it says that in our pursuit of it, we could come up with new things, new technology, and this is kind of like the reverse of that. I mean, what about what? Okay, let me find a way to phrase this. What technology could be developed from the progress we've already made, even if we're not pushing as hard as maybe we were a couple of years ago for this driverless technology. You know what I mean? So not just in the automotive space, but just in general, like how could that be put to use? Like, I think we talked in that episode about Amazon's technology, or Amazon's push with robotics and trying to,
Mhm.
do deliveries through robots or and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting, I don't know, side effect, if you will, of our industry, and what could come of that. And how can that kind of bleed into other industries, and what technologies can be developed from that? I thought that was pretty cool. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that the residual, it makes me think of, we looked up a statistic once, the amount of people that worked in residual or satellite industries from the automotive industry, like companies that make foam, or companies that make the parts for the company that makes the foam. That's obviously its own field of study that fascinates the hell out of me. But yeah, I like to imagine the residual impact of.
Who
Yeah, that's all I have to
knows?
say about that.
Okay, so here's one. Should you buy a car in 2022? Here's what consumers need to know to beat high vehicle prices. So car prices continue to fluctuate rapidly. Here's what to keep in mind if you're buying one in 2022. So I'm not going to go into the specifics. Here's the portion that I wanted to read, and it's a quote from Cox Automotive. So according to a recent report by Cox Automotive, the number of new and unsold vehicles available held steady at 1.9 million. While this was technically small improvement over last year's 1.7 million vehicles available, the numbers are still nowhere near what they used to be prior to the pandemic, when there were easily 2.55 million vehicles available in July 2020, or 3.69 million vehicles available in July of 2019.
Whoa.
So,
Whoa. I remember talking, it's kind of weird to see this from hindsight, because I remember talking about the amount of vehicles that were available back then. 3.6 million?
3.69.
So 3.7 million to 1.9 million?
Yeah, and that's my point. That's what I wanted to bring up. So even with everything that's happening right now, as far as interest rates, and yes, that's going to slow down. That's what the government wants to happen, and yeah, that is going to happen. The good thing that's on our side right now, that's probably the biggest difference between 2008 and now, is that back then we still had an excess of inventory. The markets just took a hit pretty much overnight, and we didn't have the SAR levels that we have now, but granted, we had significantly more cars, and now we have significantly less cars. So, and there's demand, and people are still employed for the most part. I know that this week's not the best example with Meta and Twitter, but and those are signs of what's cooking. Also, iPhone halted production of their product, and they have crazy amounts of data, so they're not doing that to sell less phones. But we got to find the positive in things, right? And that's really good for our industry to a certain degree, that the levels of inventory are as low as they are, because the demand can, that's going to kind of come in line with the demand and offset any potential surpluses, which now you have dead weight inventory and people that don't want to buy, and your demand keeps falling. So
see, but this is what I was like, the whole thought processes I was having is that's the term that we keep using, that we have a surplus of vehicles. I've heard that for all month. Hang on. But the point is, that was 2019 was when we had 3.7 million. So let's go to how many of our sales, how many of the people in the automotive space right now were in the automotive space selling cars in 2019. A significant portion of people started after everything's right. Well, like all hell broke loose. We laid everybody off, and then we rehired a bunch of people. So everybody thinks we have a surplus because
when you talk about increases in inventory, it's not that we have a surplus of inventory, is that we have more inventory on the ground that we did in last year or the year prior. It's not moving as fast, but the amount of inventory is significantly less. Still.
I understand. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm saying is that people are feeling like we are. The conversations that I keep hearing are things like, well, I know we have a lot of vehicles right now, but you guys need to remember that. And it's like trying to convince them that it's like trying to convince them that they need to keep pushing harder to sell cars, even if we have a lot of cars. And that comes because everybody thinks that we have a lot of cars because nobody was around when we had 3.7 million cars.
Yeah, I think what's happening in some stores, the better run stores, in my opinion, right now are the ones that are taking the risk and they have the inventory to sell. But you have to offset the new car incentives too. It's a lot cheaper. If I'm on the floor, it's better for me financially to go sell a new car than it is for me to go sell a used car. So of course I'm going to gravitate towards that. And hopefully, I can't even see, and hopefully we see that come down, because if we don't have access to inventory, I don't see that going away. You know what I mean? So that's where the issue is. It's not that we have to get better at a couple of things. We have to get better at pricing our cars right now, because there are still a lot of stores out there that are holding gross, thinking that, start bringing your inventory prices to reality. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, don't be afraid to buy inventory as long as you have a strategy to get out of your cars quickly. And number three is we have to have better conversations with our sales force and tell them, like, dude, like, we have inventory. Look at the numbers. There's 2+ million less new cars. What does that mean? That, you can sit around and wait for that new car, but you're going to have less and less opportunities at bat. So, there's chances in the market right now to flip customers. I've said this multiple times on the show. We are in an alternative base market. Alternatives. We have to be looking for the alternative for our customers. We're not doing a good job at that. We're just very easy at take the order, you know what I mean? Make the spiff, and, and let everything else that doesn't impact me directly, I'm going to remove myself from that equation. And I think that's where we're having issues.
Yeah, I would agree there. And the more that I learn about the automotive industry, the more I realize we put all of like sales guys, we put all of the effort so that this sales guy can sell a car, right? This huge industry so that this guy can sell a car. And he just goes into his job thinking that he's the shit because he can sell a car. And without fully conceptualizing the amount of time and effort it took to get that person in front of him and that vehicle in front of him. And sales guys are so reactionary and so in the moment. And it's sometimes ridiculously frustrating to try to convince them of any of this information that we're talking about right now. Like they're like, well, we have so many cars, or we don't have enough cars, or all of the price of the used cars is dropping, so I'm not going to make any money off of it. Like all of the excuses that you hear all the time, because none of that's significant, not none of them, but a lot of sales associates don't take the time to actually learn the industry that they're in. They don't know what goes into
it. They did, like, it's still, I mean, I get it, man. If I was selling cars, I get it. Like, you know, like you're going to go towards where you get the best opportunity, especially after 2 years of making, what's that article we read the other day? The average employee at the car dealership is making $100,000 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I understand. It's just times are changing, and we need to change with it. We need to change again. We can't be stuck in what it was, because it's not like that anymore. So,
but it's also reactionary. And like you had said, we had said earlier, it's not like we didn't see all of this coming. We knew that it was going to be something that we put up with, but we're so in the moment. It's like not saving for retirement. I feel like,
well, I'll tell you this.
This is the result of not saving for retirement right here.
Yeah, right. I'll tell you this. If I was in a situation where I was working at a dealership that was really lean and barely, you know, was really careful about risk, or a store that was taking a little bit more risk, I'd rather be in a dealership that has more inventory. I mean, that just makes the most sense. But as a salesperson, you have to exercise that advantage.
Have you, one of the things that when you're looking at the business profile, you know, you look up Ford in South Carolina. So you pull up the list on Google and it'll tell you what their inventory is on the
levels.
So it's like, I was looking at them this morning and it was like 67. And I stopped and I was like, what's my website? What's my, I wanted to make sure mine was accurate. And some of
but you guys are doing it well.
One that was like 9.
Yeah, you guys have like 200 plus cars and stuff on there. You guys are doing it well. I mean, it's just,
but some of them are like, some of those on that list, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, and you have a different beast.
No number.
You guys have a different problem. So, anyways, that's our automotive news for the week. Let's talk about our blog post of the week.
One of the things that we're pulling one of our older blog posts out. This is kind of your baby. You talk about this one.
I like that switcheroo there. That's very good.
I like that.
Okay, so we have our guest on the show today is from a company called PBS. They're the way that they're described to us is kind of like a tactician competitor, and so I just thought it would be fitting that we talked about a blog post that we did a few months back where we talked about open source in the automotive industry and how that is something that currently is a deterrent to innovation and moving forward as an industry. But at the same time, it's something that is needed. And companies like Tactician, for example, their whole business model is predicated on the fact that they're combining all the different aspects. I think the CEO mentioned in an interview that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that the automotive industry's technology is like a smorgasbord, if you will, of all these different companies, and nobody connects or talks to each other. And so we had this opportunity to connect with PBS and have them on the show where we're going to be talking about that. So we wanted to kind of resurrect that blog post and, just
Some
make
of
sure
the
that we,
qualms.
just kind of have, start that dialogue, because, at this stage in my career, I'm at a point now where I'm building tech for automotive dealerships, which has probably been one of the most rewarding aspects of my career, but at the same time, one of the most frustrating, because there's a lot of roadblocks to get things done, to connect. And if you can't connect all these different sources into one single view, then it's almost impossible to paint the picture, right? And really help decision makers, make decisions within their business that are going to actually move the needle forward. I mean, we have all these different things coming with a, removal of cookies. GA4 is going to be launching. We have
Restrictions.
all this connectivity with cars, and like the industry is advancing at a extremely rapid pace, but we're not catching up when it comes to being able to connect all the dots. And so, I think this will be a good one. We're going to link it in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, wherever you get your podcast fix, make sure to check it out there. Or if you're looking at this on our YouTube channel, then just check it out on the video descriptions. There'll be a link, and you can take a look at that and leave us a question or comments.
Okay.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.
Okay, so without further ado, our guest of the week is Mr. Kevin Preston from PBS Systems. Hey, Kevin, what's going on, man? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much for having me.
Awesome. We love that you're here. This is going to be a really good conversation. I can already tell. We kick things off with an intro. So tell us about you.
Well, there's long walks on the beach, all the exciting things like that. I guess more than anything, I'm a process person. So I've been, in the software industry my whole life. And but I kind of always took the focus of looking at business process and ways that you can use technology to improve people's lives. And but in the retail automotive space, it's you can see by the gray hair, it's 27 years. Yeah, it's been quite a while. But I spend all my time working with dealerships and enjoying the energy of technology and dealerships alike. So that's my world. So obviously, family guy, you got to support, you got to have some goals there and behind the scenes. So yeah.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. So, one of the things that caught my attention that which I wanted to have you on the show is because you guys offer similar products, or if not a direct alternative to what Techion is doing. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's start with that. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the product and what it does and the benefits of it. And then I have, because I have some very specific questions that I want to get your take on, but I want to kind of set the right stage here.
Yeah, I don't know how much detail you want me to get in. I can take you back a few years, but I mean, just talk to us about the whole deal. So if we got to go way back. So in late '80s, PBS was an F&I company. And it's kind of an interesting story. It was one of those, like a lot of tech stories that started in the garage, the family sitting there programming stuff at night, the stuff that they sold during the day type thing. But we actually grew to a point that 3/4 of all the vehicles sold in Canada were sold on a PBS F&I system. So you kind of imagine, from that perspective, you're working with the who's who and, and all the big dealer groups at the time. And that takes us to sort of the early 90s. From that perspective, though, there really is no future as a standalone F&I company, or at least that was a perception at that time. So 95, we actually came out with the first Windows-based technology in our industry. So we actually, we were, let's say, a bleeding edge technology at that time. But at this, same time, we took a lot of these big customers, and then we put, let's say, non-proven technology in place. We took our lumps at that point, but then we realized, okay, throw all that out, let's redesign again. And, sort of a long story short, PBS has actually redesigned our software 4 times right from the ground up. So when you contrast others like Tekion's built a product, certainly right now, recently. We've also built a product recently, and this is our 4th go round at it. So the real difference, so if you look at what PBS is, we're still a family-run business, and we represent that culture where we put dealers first, and we run conferences every year where we listen to what dealers have to say. So from that side of things, we've got the experience of redesigning products. So those little things that people don't think about, we've got built into the product while we're looking at modern platform and the things that that aren't in our industry that we're bringing to the industry. So when you kind of combine, technology, redesign, experience, 2,400 customers and all that, it's really just been a steady success story where year over year, record on record growth with 5 offices now, about 500 employees, and we're steady streaming, onboarding about 250 new customers a year. So lots of experience with dealer groups, lots of experience onboarding. That being said, it's not uncommon that we'll enter into worlds that people haven't even heard of us, and we're okay with that because, and I'll stop rambling here in a sec, but we're okay with that because, from our perspective, if you've heard of us and haven't bought from us, we're doing something else wrong. So, 73% of everyone who looks at us ends up buying from us. So it's, yeah.
So let me, okay. So thanks for that, because I want to talk about a couple of things, but first let me make sure that before I speak, that I'm not saying something that's completely off.
Sure.
So can I assume that what you guys are doing really well is combining everything into one view, or one platform? Like, say, take your DMS, your CRM, your Google Analytics, your Facebook, all these different APIs and all these different portals that are all over the place, and you're kind of centralizing that in one place, one view, so that you can look at all the information at once together, combined. Is that the right way to describe it?
Yeah, 100%. What our industry's become riddled with is products and with features. Every product has a database with features. So if you take the common theme here, which is your guest or customer, however you want to look at it, you put that as a core data structure, and then you put CRM, DMS, analytics, BI, AI, all of these tools, e-commerce, build it all into that one data structure. That's what we're bringing to the table. So, it's very common that we'll cut out vendors, but at the same time, we have open API. We work well with others. But yeah.
So here's my biggest take, because and again, maybe this is a statement of ignorance, but you're the perfect person to kind of have this conversation with. What I found in the past, and I'm at the point in my career now that I'm developing software for dealers, which is a very exciting and new place for me. Because I don't know, it's cool to be able to take kind of what I feel has been areas of opportunity, or things that in the past I would have been like, oh, it's cool if it did this, or it'd be awesome if it did this. And now I'm actually building out those things. And what I found in my kind of, I don't know, entry, if you will, is that it's very difficult to get collaboration through open source. It's very difficult to get these companies to, I don't know, want to share and want to participate and want to truly make the dealers better. It's like they're very guarded with their information. And to me, that seems very limiting. I'm sorry, what was that, Cherry?
Suspicious. Everybody's kind of suspicious,
because I get it. I mean, I understand, but I don't know. From your take, is that something that's unique to the automotive industry? Is that not the case at all? And I'm just knocking on the wrong doors, or is it, or because it seems like other industries, they're more open to like, hey, open source, and like look at somebody like Google, like they could protect their information and be like, no, you're not, their API is there. You go use it. Facebook, the same thing. But you talk to a DMS or a CRM or something like that, and it's like you got to pay these exorbitant fees and all this other stuff. And some companies flat out will be like, no, why would I give you access to my information? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. What's your take?
Well, you're digging deep right away here. This is, I would say, this is one of the most interesting parts of our industry, because you got to realize. So we have 2,400 customers. And there's still battles with third parties that, who does the work, who develops this, and everybody's so protective of their the data is king, right? And I think that's something that people have realized, is that because they have the data, they have the power, and everybody's forgetting that it's the dealer's data. And what ends up happening is the dealer ends up getting caught in the middle of these conversations, and it's so unfortunate. But we deal with it too, and we're certainly not, it's not like we have 10,000 customers, but all we do from that perspective is we just say that we've got the API. Anybody who wants to can push to it, and we'll send data to anybody a dealer wants to. Obviously we got to protect it, encrypt it and all that stuff, but just make it easy. And what ends up happening, though, to be candid, you get there's these corporate machines out there that and I won't name any names, but I think we kind of all had some experience with them, that they want to protect their own, and rather than using our inclusive CRM, well, if there's a data structure they can protect and make some revenue, with some other tool, they're going to try to protect that and maintain their revenue streams. And it's all corporate machine driven, as opposed to, you nailed it, where we should be thinking about the customer here, and, and the guest experience, not this bottom line issue. But that's the industry right now. That's what it is.
Well, I like what you said when you said that you take the customer and use that as the point to create everything from. And I think that we don't look at it that way a lot of times in the industry.
Well, that's why we're all here. We're all here because there's that guest in the dealership that's looking for some kind of a positive experience. So how can we simplify that? And our customers, so your service advisor, salesperson, whomever, when they're interacting with that customer, we want their life to be easy, because it's a better guest experience. How we get there, differs store by store. Everyone's got slightly different opinions, and different opinions, to your point about, different third parties and stuff like that, what they want to use. That's not for us to choose. That's for us to facilitate in as comfortable a way as possible.
Right. I don't know if the fallout is the right word, but the repercussion of that is, it's very limiting, right? Like, I feel that in the age that we are right now, we have all this technological capabilities, but we're not able to fully, how do I say it? Maximize it, because we don't have, because of things like that, because of all these roadblocks and all this. I mean, if data is king, but you can't access the data, or your data is fragmented, you know what I mean? That's not good.
That's another failure point, right?
Yeah. And so, the person that kind of ends up paying for that is a dealer ultimately. Right. And then that makes the dealers not able to offer the full experience to their customers. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with you, because the software in general, being that you're in the world, basically somebody comes out with a cool feature, whatever it is, right? And then theoretically others, not only match but surpass, and then you're constantly pushing life forward. And you're absolutely right. If there's a battle to keep the features down, we never advanced. And I remember 20 years ago, actually, it might be a little bit more than that, but when I first got into the industry, I remember thinking, oh, you know, cars, everything's so cool, you know, modern technology. I get to work with the, you know, the salespeople of all salespeople, because all car dealers are, you know, great guys and all this. But then what ended up happening though is you get into it and you realize, holy smokes, you know, at that time it was 30-year-old technology. And it's almost like for years you could hide behind technology. Now I think the last, you know, 3-4 years in particular has stopped that. I think people realize that you have to drive forward. We have to figure out, you know, better ways to do things always, not just because, you know, adversity strikes or there's some situation we have to deal with. Like, you know, constant improvement is critical. And I think we're seeing that a lot more. You know, we used to reach out to dealers regularly and we would successfully engage them. But what's happening now is we're seeing a lot more dealers are actually in dealer groups are seeking us, and they're seeking way better ways to do things, and they're more engaged than I think they've ever been. And
Yeah.
that,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And I think it's exactly your point though, because, well, and there's all sorts of, you know, legislation coming down the pipe, you know, I know, you know, about as far as, you know,
Sure.
protecting customer data and stuff. So,
Right.
you know, having multiple vendors is an obstacle on its own as well. You know,
Mhm.
that's something that people are really looking at right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's some FTC compliance issues, and we're preparing at some of the stores that I work at that, you know, the vendors are going to have to do certain things in order to continue to be vendors, or we're not going to be able to do business with them. You know what I mean? So it just creates all kinds of issues. But the other thing that you know, so yeah, so I agree that it just limits technology. But take websites, for example. We were just talking about this before you came into the room. Is I don't get websites today, like the better of the worst, because they're all bad in my opinion. The ones that I've seen, they're just WordPress websites that don't have any, I don't know, man. Like they just feel like we should have badass websites right now that are using React as part of your code stack. And, you know, they should have like WebP. They should be able to convert these JPEG images into WebP images. You know what I mean? You run a Lighthouse scan on a website and the performance is, you're lucky if it gets to 30% because you have a gajillion images on there that are not the best practice or the right format for a website to begin with. And then that technology legacy builds. What's it going to look like 10 years from now? You know what I mean? Are companies like HomeNet and Beyond, are they going to update how they syndicate? Are they going to update the way that they receive information so that our websites can perform better? You know what I mean? Like or is there a company out there that's going to create a website that transforms these? Because you can grab that image and transform it into a WebP. Like, you know, you can do it on the other side, but we don't do that here. And then we charge dealerships $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a website that is, it's a word. I don't know, man. Like that's been like my topic for the season. Like I'm so frustrated with these websites. I'm just so done with them. And I feel like, you know, we're talking about WordPress, and how did that start? Open source, right? Like people were able to connect and add more to it. People from all over the world and different coders, different ideas. And yes, we'll take the stuff that works and the stuff that we don't want. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be that I don't know, that ability to take something and make it better and improve it for everybody.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a funny. We get caught up in the middle, and I think you nailed it right there. You said a few key points. The one is the revenue stream they get. You know, we're in an industry with contracts revenue stream. So, you know, and this isn't a PBS philosophy. This is what I see in the industry. Like it appears as though if I have a 72% satisfied customer with a website, you know, to continue with that theme, you know, and I'm making, you know, really good money, limited development, you know, I could spend a lot more money and have an 82% satisfied customer, but a 72% satisfied customer isn't going to leave me because I got a contract. And I think inherently that's the problem. And then the focus isn't in everything we see, and you can kind of go across the product, you know, providers in our industry. It almost seems like every one of them owns a core company, and then they have a bunch of other companies that can come in and solve a problem. So, maybe not website, but if we expand it even bigger, what happens? What's the incentive to evolve this product or this functionality at a core level when I'm going to erode another revenue stream I've got from another company that I might under my umbrella? So I find that more than anything, that's what's defeating the industry, because people are making a lot of money doing very limited, and you don't want to erode your own business. And I think that's why our story is so well received, because we at least give an alternative choice in a proven environment. But at the same time, we still play in that same game. We have a competitor. There was a deal recently that I got engaged in. Basically, the DMS was being given away because they wanted to maintain the data structure to sell the other companies. I remember specifically, I quoted the dealer and I said, well, the challenge I have is I don't have 25 other companies that I can come in and sell you stuff with. I need to stand by this right now. I think there's a lot of value we're providing that's going to save you from that. But at the same time, we deal specifically in that one moment and that one interaction. I think that's where, that's the problem with the industry, and a few examples in there anyway. But
yeah,
I love the industry. No. I'm here because I love it. There's no big problems with the industry,
but that's why we have to have these conversations, right? Because we have to. So here's the thing. Like, for all that we talk about the lack of technology or resources or open source and all these things, dealers still pay the bill, right? And they're not exactly asking for better.
Yeah.
So somebody has to start bringing these conversations to light. Somebody needs to be like, hey, wait, I pay $4,000 a month for a website that I have to also pay you more money so that it's technically sound on the SEO side, because otherwise, technically my schema markup, my title tags, all that stuff's going to be out of whack. What? Like, you know what I mean? On the CRM side, I pay you $2,800 a month, but my CRM can't do a trend report, or my CRM can't tell me who my vendors are and what the contact for that vendor is and how to get into that vendor portal with an easy click of a button. It can't tell me, what my cost per sale is, what my cost per lead is. It can't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, my CRM marks duplicate leads bad. Instead of telling me, hey, that customer that you've got an active lead on from July, they just put a new lead in. This marks it bad. And then you call them and you say, hey, can we fix this? No, sorry. There's no fix for that.
It's just these little things and then who puts this stuff together? Like at a dealership level, who takes all this information and throws out the crap and actually gives the decision makers the stuff that they can use to, I don't know, make better decisions? Like, what vendors work, what vendors don't work, what cars to stock, what cars not to stock, pricing. What about your customers in your DMS? That's your lowest hanging fruit. What are the strategies from a DMS standpoint that allows you to, I don't know, re-engage with those customers? I said this on the episode the other day and I stand by it. If the purchasing journey, is all this and you end up on a car, right? Because there's so many different places in the research path to get to the car that you actually buy. The ownership journey is a straight line, because that customer bought this car and at this point they're going to need service, and at this point they're going to need tires, and at this point they're going to need to know what their vehicle is worth, and then at this point they're going to probably want to get rid of that car. Like, we know that stuff, but the systems don't. They're not built to make that. I think about when I order Domino's, right? And it has a tracker. Like, our system should be like that post-purchase. Hey, Juan's making your pizza and Dave's got the pizza in the oven and Stephanie's out for delivery. And you can see that. You can see that whole thing in a tracker. Like, that's the way that should be after the customer buys the car. It should
You're absolutely right. And you're hitting some interesting stuff, because there's two things. One is barrier to entry. When you talk about, CRM, for example, I got an example. There's one OEM I can remember about a decade ago that, we had this great story with them. We're talking to them at a high executive level. all inclusive CRM, DMS, this whole thing, and they're really pumped up about it. But then what happened is we start deploying, and then we realize, well, we can't get leads. And, so I can't get leads. Well, you got to go through a separate department for CRM certification. And so, obviously we know all that for all OEMs, but that's one of the issues, is that you might have all the best thing in the world, but you have to go through the process to become, if I can't get can't get internet leads from the OEM, all the other stuff I do, it's not as exciting, because there's a huge obstacle there. So the good news is now we have all that, but I'm just thinking back as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the journeys that we had to go, because we can't just go to any OEM and say, by the way, CRM, DMS, e-commerce, all your part streams come true. Like, we can't go tell that story, because I have to tell that story 7 or 8 different times and get everyone excited. So instantly we're put in silos again, which I think leads to the tail end of what you're talking about, where you're right. Like, we call it the guest, the guest experience, or customer lifecycle management. It doesn't matter if they enter in parts or service or sales. We need to create a journey for them around our enterprise. And when I got multiple stores, my enterprise is bigger than just the bricks and mortar I have around me right now. So we need to expand beyond that, and it's hard to do that when I have, to your point, I have somebody over here using this CRM. I have this person over here doing this service marketing engine. I have this e-commerce platform, and then I have this web platform, and then I have this desking tool. Plus I have a DMS. I'm trying to bring it all together. And that's the stuff that we experience. And because they're different platforms, it's hard enough for a lot of these systems out there, in our experience, to even talk to themselves, because they have multiple layer data structures. So, step one, cleanse the data structure into a single platform. Then step two, build the functionality around it, so you don't have to communicate. And I won't cliche you to death, but I kind of tell our sales team all the time, like, we don't use the word integration, because integration implies tying two things together. You can't tie two things together if you're truly one environment around an entire guest experience, regardless of your entry point into it. So,
well,
yeah.
So
So
go back to the cost of entry into the market, right? When the cost is so high to get in, all of those new fresh minds that are out there, this generation that's coming in that has never experienced life without a computer or a phone, right? They think about things entirely different than we do. They see solutions to problems that we probably will never conceptualize, and then they're inhibited by the fact that they have to jump all of these hurdles all the time.
See, I would say the opposite. I would say that the cost of entry is so low, and that's why there's so many different companies, because you build something, you build a widget, and then you go and you sell it, and dealers buy it, right? I mean, that's how it goes. And then they get on this recurring revenue stream. And I mean, I don't know, let's say you make a widget and you sell it for $300, and the dealership, you get 1,000 dealers buying it at $300 a pop every single month. I mean, that's real money, right? That's coming in. And I don't know, maybe it's 3 people that work at your company.
Well, right. But that's the piecemeal again. You get a little bit here and a little bit there. But if you want to become
exactly,
one of the big
and that's
dogs,
the issue.
if you want to become one of the big dogs, like, and affect a CRM or a DMS, and you have ideas and solutions to go with those things, that's a whole different story.
Sure. No question about that. Yeah. No, I agree with you. That part is crazy. And some of these, $40,000 or something just to get certified on it. I mean, come on.
That's really inhibiting.
Yeah.
But in the process, the time to build those connections and testing, it's we spend millions of dollars a year now, maintaining our OEM relationships, which is great, because we stay engaged and we stay at the forefront. We do a lot of pilot stuff, which is kind of neat, but but it was tough haul getting there. It's not like we woke up one morning and had all certifications. We got there through a lot of hard work and, basically old school making friends. And, so it, when I look back on it now, I think, well, geez, that was a heck of a lot of work. When you're in it, you kind of feel like you're pounding your head against the wall at times. Right. So.
Sure. So I think about, often, and I know everybody uses Amazon as a point of comparison, but what do you think Jeff Bezos did and his team did for the first 10 years of Amazon? Like, obviously they were selling stuff. I get that. But don't you think that they were building a badass website? Like a badass website that knows everything you do when you're on there. It tracks everything, and it's super intuitive. It connects with everything. Like, and they've continued to build and build on that for, since inception. But I have to believe that the first 10 years, it was all about how can we make the website the best freaking thing that learns and knows and anticipates and does all these things in order to create that digital experience that exists today. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's where the biggest miss is, in my opinion. We talk about the experience as an industry. We talk about, making things easy for the customer and all this stuff, but we don't deliver on any of it digitally. I mean, go to a website right now. It's the equivalent of walking into a dealership and having a member of each department come to you and be like, hey, I got the special for service. Hey, I got the special for the car. Hey, give me your phone number over here. Hey, you know what I mean? It's just the worst. And and a website, and we're just talking cars here. A website like Amazon that has everything, any kind of product you can possibly imagine. It's the smoothest, easiest way to buy anything. So I don't get, and the biggest part is that we don't connect. Like, why doesn't our website connect and tell me, hey, okay, my car appears here. You like this car? Boom, something appears. Hey, why don't you put these parts, these accessories on your car will look really good. And this stuff over here. And this is the plan that you can get for your financing, and does all these things. If all these systems were talking to each other and interconnected, and you could extract information, boom, there you go. You could put your, like what iPacket is doing right now with service and brochures and all this stuff. But it's almost impossible to do in our space. Because nothing talks to each other, and nobody wants to build it, and nobody wants to connect with the other thing. And it's just shitty. Excuse my French, but I mean, it's not good.
What I like what you're saying is it's the unseen work that's behind the scenes. We've got I don't know, a huge development team, sitting at our headquarters in Calgary, and a lot of times I'll walk by, and I'm a sales guy, so I walk by and I ask them, what's new, what's flashy, and the stuff they get excited about is actually a lot of the core stuff, the what you're talking about, like how streamline data, how you streamline all that information flow. And then we've had machine learning algorithms running and AI, platforms running for years, which is doing exactly what you're talking about, starting to trend behaviors. So I know what tendencies people will have based on the data that we've got, and we can use that from a marketing perspective. Where you're going to shake your head at me right now is we're not in the website business. So I have all that data, I have everything you're talking about, but we don't have the web platform that we can extend that to. We have, you have a digital experience that you can embed, but to your point, now we're still relying on somebody else at a bit of a starting point, right? And it's which is exactly what you're talking about. So
yeah, I really hope that it gets better, man, because I think that there's a lot of cool things that we're missing out on from a digital experience point, because I do like to differentiate the two. I think there's an in-person experience and there's a digital experience, and the two need to meet at some point. But I just think that the digital experience, if you go, here's the best way to say it. If you go to 10 dealership websites and you get the same feeling from all 10, that's the problem in the industry right there. That's the problem.
The little pop-up chat that has the same face with the two computers.
Yeah, right. It's the same employee at all 10 dealerships.
Yeah. I texted a buddy of mine the other day because I said, wow, this person looks exactly like your competitor down the street.
You should be concerned. I think they are moonlighting.
A little bit of work to be done there, yeah.
Yeah. So, but and that's just the final part of it, Kevin, because unless all the stuff in the background talks to each other, like your inventory management system, your CRM, your DMS, your analytics, your social platforms, your marketing platforms, unless they all talk to each other, delivering that experience is not going to happen. It's impossible unless you do kind of like a tactician or what you guys do, where you're already providing those services, and then you just put it in front of a consumer facing platform, but you have all the back end connections to make sure that you can build something that's truly unique and different. I don't know, man. I just think that, I mean, it already exists. Like Amazon has that. Walmart has that. Target has those things, right? And so it's not like what I'm saying is something that's impossible to create. It's just that, I don't know, for some reason in the automotive space, we haven't thought about it yet. We haven't put those pieces together, or nobody's really willing to cut into it, like you said earlier, because it buys into other services that they offer. Like, for instance, and again, I know I'm really website specific, but it's because everything should connect to ultimately offer that experience. But why can you not have a program on your website that runs up Google ad or a Facebook ad? It's totally doable. You can do it through API. It's not hard to do. Push of a button, you can go to a specific car on the backend portal, click the button, boom, ads created. But website companies will never do that, because what else do website companies sell? SEM and social media. And if you allow the customer to do that, guess what? You can't charge them management fees. You know what I mean?
You went exactly where I was thinking there, because fundamentally, we talked earlier about data being king and people profiting from data. So let's say I had all this data, and this is, again, it's not a PBS philosophy, but if I had all this data and I knew that I could make $500, $600, $700 a month just because I already have the data, why would I spend any money developing anything with that data if I can rely on somebody else who's going to pay me that money to do nothing? It cannibalizes itself, and that's a challenge. So, and you're hitting all of our soft spots, because this is why people buy from us, because you should not hold people hostage for data. And that's the, to your whole point, that's the starting point to it, is the data exists. And, to your point about Amazon, all this, well, they didn't have to rely on anyone else because they carried all the data elements themselves. And it was
right. They built it from scratch.
Exactly. In our world, DMS data generally has, the core elements, and we know, sales, transactional information, accessories, service experiences, we know trending, all that stuff. So everyone in our world, and again, 20 some thousand dealerships around North America, we only have that, 2,400. So there's others that have much more market share that hold that data for profit. And so that's inherent. There's your problem right there, is, we need to strip that back. And there's been some stuff, historically, that I'm sure you're aware of, where, they were, let's say, not as allowed to, hold that back. And I think, people are starting to understand the third-party data agreements a little bit more than they used to. So dealers are starting to fight back a little bit, which is good. But until that data becomes more accessible for everybody, I think we're still going to have that same situation, because they make too much money to do nothing. Whereas
absolutely.
The difference there, to kind of contrast in our world, is we're half our company is geared around onboarding new customers. So what we do is we use those things because we're going to make more money by onboarding more customers, to gain more market share. So we have an incentive to use data in a dealer's favor. But if you're maxed out in market share and you just kind of trade in business, you don't have that incentive. You need to retain that profit. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the challenge. So until, hopefully one day we get up to 15,000, and I'm still telling you we're really good and really friendly with data, I think that's the kind of game changer you need, is you need that mass market share around data.
Definitely.
Yeah, I hope, man. I hope that we can look at this as a betterment for the industry and start making the right plays and the right moves, because it's starting to feel a little bit like, I don't know, man. Like I said earlier, like we should have better, man. I don't know how else to say it. Like it just feels like we should have better, and it should be the technology that exists should make it easier. Let's just talk about marketing for a second. It should make it easier for you to have better marketing strategies. But oftentimes it's a lot more difficult if you don't know where to go and get information, and where to you know, like if you don't have some sort of, data analyst at your store, you're at a disadvantage, because what happens is these vendors come in and they pitch you on, oh, look at the success that we had here. And they want to claim all the success that you have on that specific thing. And you got to look at the combination of everything in order to really make sound decisions. And if you don't have somebody at your store that's good at data and painting the picture and putting that stuff together, man, you're just going to it's going to be very difficult, because it's just coming from everywhere. You know,
we work with a dealer group that they had a BI team before they were a customer. They had a BI team that had I think they were closing on about 50 employees in their operation. And what was really interesting about it is, they all signed up to be, BI, data analysts, AI. They wanted to do all this cool, data stuff. And what was funny though is it ended up that 3/4 of all of their responsibilities were simply data cleansing, which is exactly what you're talking about. They just to try to get a purity of data, so now they could do the cool stuff they actually signed up to do. So so much of their time was devoted to that. And yet, I'm trying not to turn this into a PBS sales pitch, but that was one of the cool things with PBS is it was all one data structure, in the end. So you free up so much time to do those things that matter, more. But I got to add to that though, another challenge that you see, it's this perpetual search for the fatal flaw. Okay, so what ends up happening is you got the coolest thing in the world. Okay, so everyone's got cool. Everyone out there is coming to you with the coolest thing. But the coolest thing in the world, though, first question is, well, why haven't I heard of it before? Because people don't believe, well, if it's that great, it's been everywhere. Well, you have to start somewhere is number one. But what's interesting is you dive in when all of the right things are said and done. It's almost like, and I don't know if this is human nature in general or the industry is maybe a little more sensitive to it, but what ends up happening is there's this perpetual search. There's got to be something I'm missing. What don't I know that's going to surprise me later? Because everything I'm hearing right now sounds too good to be true.
Right.
And so it's almost like the better you are, the more you hurt yourself in the industry as well, which has been a really interesting phenomenon. We've been kind of dealing with, because you can't show what you don't have. You know what I mean? So it becomes, but I think that also holds technology back, because there have been people that have entered the industry, because to your point, we got a lot of attention right now. Like private equity money is going crazy in our world, because they realize, exactly as you said earlier, there's recurring revenue models, long-term contracts, all of the magical things that make money makers happy. So what's happened with that is there's so much attention, and I think a lot of people have entered with the next best thing that maybe wasn't deliverable. They didn't think through. They're all about the flash, and maybe they forgot a little bit of the meat that was needed. So I think that's created some scars as well, which I also think plays to your comment about maybe what's holding some technology back as well.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. This has been really good, a really good conversation. I love the premise of what you guys are doing. I hope that I gotta mention something, because we did write an article about Techian that, I don't know, some people might not look as very favorable, and I kind of want to challenge you and hold you to the same standard, that if you get to a place where you have all these dealers on, that you make that information available to all, right? Because that's what's going to fuel us, that's what's going to move this industry forward. I think that we sometimes and I'm not accusing you guys of any of this, I'm just saying as a whole, we have to think about how can we use the technology that we have available today, and the best way to do that, in my opinion, is connectivity and connecting all these different points, and then being able to extract from all, so that we can truly create a digital experience that's different, that's better, and then ultimately it's going to push dealers forward. So but I love that you guys are doing it. I love the connectivity of it. I love that more companies are going to start looking at things holistically, and hopefully through open source initiatives and things of that nature, we can see some really impressive leaps forward. So
that's where the magic is. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I appreciate the invite too. This is great. So
yeah, So there is one question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
Oh, that's a big one. So there's a lot of moving parts here for sure. But I think to your point here, more than ever, I think dealers are demanding technology. So I think you're going to see a lot more advancement in technology. I think you're going to see a lot of strong movement away from legacy. I think there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of streamlining. Happening from, ultimately from a technology perspective, but a guest experience perspective, which I think is going to drive some change, in dealerships. And, specifically, I can see, we've siloed ourselves with, salespeople, F&I, desk managers, all that stuff. Well, to your point, if we create a good digital experience right from front to back, I think we can clean up that whole workflow and create much more simplified. So maybe I become a car guy instead of a siloed, in dealership. So I think we're going to see a lot more creativity, and I think we're going to see a lot of people trying new things. Obviously, we're going to have to reinvent some service as well with, electric vehicles. So there's going to be a change in flavor as far as that goes as well. So we're going to try newer, better ways to do things. Obviously gas stations are going to go away. So we'll see some changes there at some point too. But we'll just follow EU for there, because I think they were announcing nothing by 2035. So that might be a little further projection. But at the same time, I think you're just going to see more, where I said historically we could hide behind technology, we're going to see much more quick technology advancements in the next 5 years. And I think people are just, to your point, they're tired of waiting for stuff. They're demanding better technology, quicker, better guest experience, and, open platforms. So I think we'll get there. But we're also going to see elimination of some, vendors as well, because they're not just going to close their doors. There's too much private equity money that's bought in and too much investment. So it has to change. So you're going to see some, I'm going to go on a limb here. I actually predicted that the UCS Reynolds thing years ago, because there wasn't room for these types of players anymore. And I think you're going to see more and more of that, kind of move a different direction. I'll say it that way. So from our perspective, we're just going to create more market share. I think in the next 5 years, we can actually grow. We've only got about 22 salespeople across North America. We're going to have 60 people on our sales team. So I think more and more states are going to be exposed to us. And now that we got all OEM certified, you're going to see a lot more PBS presence. And I'll take your comment to heart that, one of the biggest things that I think people need to do when they create success is to remember what it is that created that success and maintain that. So, one of the things we work real hard on is maintaining that friendly culture and dealer friendly environment that, we want to listen, we want to improve, we're going to constantly improve, and discontinuous improvement. Don't be afraid to throw technology out, because, don't hold on to it. You can't be attached. You got to throw it out and start fresh. And that's the only way you continue to evolve, is take that experience and grow from it. So I'll take that to heart, and I'll give you the commitment right now. We're going to remain true to that culture that's onboarding customers at the rate it is right now. So we'll keep that API friendly, and we'll go from there. So
very cool. Love it. Kevin, Preston, everybody, great conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's all the time that we have for today. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing. What you do? We inspect it with our DT vendor management.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealer talk. That's 4eyes.io/dealer talk.